Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined on this Friday morning by Pat Fitzmaurice and by Derek Brown. Fellas, it is week 8. We are moving right along with the season. Before we jump into our key questions for this week, we have to talk about at least one takeaway from the Thursday night game this week. It was Rams 30, Vikings 20. Obviously, a very tough loss. At tackle, Christian Darrisaw going out in this game for the Vikings. A lot of offense early in this one, slowed up a bit in the second half. But the big thing is Puka Nacua. He was back on the field for us. Cooper Kupp also back. But there was a ton of consternation leading into this game about analysts deciding where to rank him and how much is he actually going to play. Is he going to be a full-time player? Is he going to be a part-time player? The reporting was he was not going to play a full allotment of snaps. And then all he did was come out and lead the team in targets with 9. He had 7 catches. He had 106 yards, no touchdown. Cooper Kupp did get in the end zone, by the way. But the Rams, stars were back, and Stafford really benefited, 279 yards and 4 touchdowns. But Puka was the one that everybody was talking about before the game. So, Debro, you obviously are a big Puka guy. You both are. But how did you approach trying to rank Puka yesterday? And what was your takeaway from what we saw out of him?
If I had hair, I would have ripped it out. I didn't know what to do with it, man. Like, we were glued to the timeline, and I know Slack, we were all going back and forth. Where do we rank this guy? Is he inside the top 50? Is he a wide receiver 3? How much is he going to play? And I'm sorry, in the year 2024, we need better injury reporting. I'm just going to say it. Like, the fact of we don't know how much he's going to play. It is veiled and cloaked, and every report comes out he's going to be a part-time player. I get he played 57% of the snaps. Technically, you can say he's a part-time player. The 9 targets say that, okay, well, it was wrong. So, yeah, he was a headache, man. So anybody that followed our advice on Slack, me specifically, I was telling people to sit Puka because, honestly, I was like, he could go out there and play 10 snaps. He could go out there and play 40%. Did not know what to do with him. So if that's what makes the difference in your fantasy week, I apologize.
Fitz, you do have hair. Were you pulling it out yesterday?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, I did rank him too low. I had him at wide receiver 40 for the week. But what's interesting is how we're going to treat this going forward in the rankings. Obviously, Puka and Kupp are both startable, but I think henceforth, I'm going to be ranking Puka ahead of Kupp. Like, Puka was just much more essential to the Rams offense, it seemed like, than Kupp was last night. And, they were even giving Puka the ball on reverses, although I think Kupp might have had a reverse too. But man, like, Puka looked fantastic. Great to see him back in action. And like, the Rams offense is lively again. And oh, by the way, another touchdown for Kyren Williams. Just a machine.
Matthew Stafford is just barely inside the top 24 in our staff rankings for rest of season at quarterback. Do you think that needs to bump up a little bit as long as Kupp and Puka are on the field?
I'm going to move him up for sure. And I had him it was weird. I think ECR on him this week was like quarterback 25 and I had him quarterback 22 and I still had him ranked too low. So I mean, if you give Stafford his full arsenal of weapons, give him Puka and Kupp, like, he's he should be in QB2 range.
QB 18 is what I just moved him up to. I think he's in the same conversation or area code as like Caleb, Tua, Sam Darnold is about where I think we should have him. And just to note, Puka Nacua yesterday, you love to see it, man. 35% first read target share.
Wow. Just very quickly to put a bow on this game, Debro, Christian Darrisaw, I haven't seen any kind of update this morning. Obviously did not look good when he went down right before halftime. Is he the type of tackle that it would impact your fantasy rankings for players on this team if he misses significant time?
I mean, it's going to impact this rushing offense. We saw it last night, guys. Like Aaron Jones, I had him as a top 10 running back for the week because the Rams have not been able to stop the run. Aaron Jones has looked awesome, but part of that is if you look at most metrics, the Minnesota Vikings run blocking has been bottom 5. So you're taking out an integral piece of that offensive line. What was bottom 5 now might become the worst run blocking offensive line in the NFL. Yeah, it's a big difference.
All right, let's jump into the show here. Quick reminder for everyone, all of our weekly consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. If you're juggling multiple fantasy football teams and feeling overwhelmed, Fantasy Pros is here to help you simplify things. With Fantasy Pros Multi-League Assistant, you can see the latest news, notes, and rankings for every single player across every single team. It's all in one spot, making your path to victory clearer and easier. Dive in and let us help you dominate all your leagues with the Multi-League Assistant at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Football My Playbook app. All right, guys, let's jump into the games. We're going to start with Ravens-Browns in that 1 o'clock Eastern window. I really got to focus on the Browns side of this one. How does Jameis Winston at quarterback change how we're approaching the Browns in fantasy, both for Week 8 and beyond? Obviously, they are leaving. He got injured, but the worst quarterback in football on the field so far this year. Getting a guy who certainly has talent, who has had a lot of really fun moments in his career, has been very up and down, a lot of interceptions as well. So Fitz, what do you make of Winston at quarterback for him, for the skilled players, for this week, for beyond, just the whole situation?
All right. I am not exactly pushing in all my chips on this take, either from the perspective of my own fantasy lineups or my rankings for Week 8. But I think it's at least possible that Jameis Winston has the same sort of effect on the Browns offense that Joe Flacco did last season when he took over for Deshaun Watson. They're the same type of quarterbacks. They are aggressive, fearless, downfield throwers who are going to make big plays in the passing game, and they're going to throw a lot of interceptions. We know that with Jameis. He's had a 30 interception season. The easiest player prop for me to bet this week, one of the easiest, was Jameis over, I think, 219 and a half passing yards against this Ravens defense, which is just hemorrhaging passing yards to everyone, just because I think this offense is going to be so much more aggressive with the downfield passing. Flacco helped turn tight end David Njoku into a monster late last season. Maybe Winston can do the same. And I'm intrigued by Cedric Tillman. We know Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore are just sort of meh. But, Tillman, who had 12 targets, led all the Browns wide receivers in targets last week, 8 catches for 81 yards. Maybe Tillman takes on a leading role in a more prolific passing attack. And, Nick Chubb came back last week. He's interesting. The Browns are getting guard Wyatt Teller back. Their offensive line has been really banged up all season. That's a good group if they're all healthy. So maybe we see more life from this offense and more fantasy impact going forward.
What do you expect, Ebro, both for this week and beyond?
Hope. Lots of hope. Where there was none, there was no hope. Deshaun Watson was bad, has been horrible, has been a bottom 3 quarterback, if not the worst guy in the NFL. So now with Jameis Winston under center, we have hope, people. And I'm going to double down on what Fitzy said about Tillman. I think it's already happened, man. We saw him take over as the target leader last week, and I don't want to shy away from that. I think it's very, very telling after weeks and weeks of it has been Jerry Jeudy in leading the team in first read share or David Njoku. Last week, the biggest thing that I can display for people is 31.3% first read share for David Njoku. That led the team last week. That won't surprise anybody. Who tied him for that was Cedric Tillman. So Cedric Tillman could be their wide receiver 1 in the sense of he's the running mate that could be fighting Njoku for targets on a weekly basis. I love that call. And yeah, I've seen people on the timeline having hope for Jerry Jeudy. I don't have any hope for Jerry Jeudy. We've seen how many years we play this game, how many times we play this game. I've talked about Jerry Jeudy on previously this year on the waiver wire show where I've been he's producing as a wide receiver 3. He's fallen down the pecking order, and Elijah Moore is just not a thing, man. Again, we've seen a large enough sample size of both of them not being great that the Browns turned the page with Jameis Winston last week, and the targets went Tillman's way, and I think that continues. I think their wide receiver 1 is David Njoku, but I think the guy that's competing with him on a weekly basis, again, this week included, is Cedric Tillman.
Debra, I want to get your opinion on Nick Chubb. We had a bit of a crazy disagreement yesterday on the Thursday show, but I think I was a bit higher on Chubb this week than Fitz and Erickson were based on our conversation. Not only do I like Chubb for the fact that I think the offense will be more explosive and just better in general, and therefore more potential scoring opportunities. Also, just another week back from the injury, shaking off the rust a bit last week. But also Travis Jones, who is a very major part of the Ravens' run defense, has been severely limited at practice this week. Even if he plays, I don't think he's anywhere close to full strength. And I know it's been a really strong run defense all season, but the whole defense is now banged up at it pretty much every level, it seems like. And now the Browns offense is taking this step forward. So what do you make of Chubb for this week?
I think you're higher on him than I am. And I know you're in the weeds with Baltimore and the injuries, and maybe we're all just low on him. I know you follow the team closely. I just think that this has been an elite run defense. If you take a few of the cogs out of the wheel, or out of the machine, it's still Still probably a top 12 run defense, at least league average. And Nick Chubb is still in the ramp up phase. He got more of the work. He took over the early downs last week. But we still have to understand, when you go look at the deeper metrics, tackle breaking stuff for him, he very much looked like a guy who was playing in his first NFL game this season and coming off of an injury. So while I think better days are ahead, because if you look at Cleveland's schedule, they get the Chargers, who you can run on them, and then they get the freaking Saints, which welcome to Nick Chubb week. I think better things are ahead. But I'm low on Nick Chubb this week. I do think the Browns move the ball consistently, but I think it's going to be through the air.
Okay. And to be clear, I'm not saying he should be a top 10 running back or anything like that. But in ECR, he's RB 34. I just think that's too low.
To Fitz's point, though, on this game, too, one of the first bets I put in the week, you're telling me I get plus money on Jameis Winston over 1.5 passing touchdowns? Lock it in.
I thought you
couldn't bet it fast enough.
Truthfully, one of my favorite bets of the week is the Browns plus the points. Just in general, I think over a touch. I think it started with 9.5 is how it opened. It's actually come down to 8 now. Looking at DraftKings Sportsbook right now, but I just think divisional game. It's in Cleveland. I think they're going to be re-energized without Deshaun Watson there. Jameis, I think, is a huge upgrade. Based on the.
Are you also playing the role of self-deprecating fan? No,
I just think it's a great bet.
Too many teams back in the games.
I just think I have a survivor league where it's not really a survivor, but you a picks league where you just pick your 5 favorite against the spread each week, and this was the first one I marked was Browns plus the points. Okay. I think that's a very smart. I hope and think the Ravens win, but I think it's way too many points for what I expect. Let's go to the next game here. Cardinals-Dolphins. Another game that is impacted by quarterback change with Tua Tagovailoa back at QB for Miami. Is there any hesitation ranking their usual starters as highly as we would have if Tua never got hurt? Is it still full steam ahead? Just kind of Tyreek back in that top 5 range, Jalen Waddle back in that top 20 range, or are we somewhat concerned, first game back, we kind of want to see it again here. Fitz, how are you approaching this?
Just the slightest bit of hesitation. Tua hasn't played since week 2. It wouldn't be totally out of the question if he looked a little bit rusty, but I do have Tua ranked QB 15, Devon Achane ranked RB 15, Tyreek Hill wide receiver 7, Jalen Waddle wide receiver 20. So pretty close to where they would be normally, although, it's there are a lot of wide receivers hurt. So, if we had a healthier group of wide receivers, I would probably conservatively rank Waddle out of the top 25. But with all the guys hurt, he makes the top 20.
The one of those Fits that you just said that I thought sounded maybe the most conservative, at least based on how much I know you like the player, was Achane. I was kind of expecting you to say he was more in that RB1 type of range.
Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals' run defense is a pushover, and we sort of saw that on Monday night with J.K. Dobbins having a hard time getting it going. And there was one other running back, I'm blanking on this, who sort of struggled against the Cardinals earlier this season. So, I don't know. I think Achane is pretty clearly the lead back there now. I don't know if we see the same sort of split that we saw last year between Achane and Raheem Mostert, but Mostert is still going to factor, and maybe Jalen Wright gets some touches too.
What do you think, Debro? Whether it's Tua, Achane, the receivers, are you ranking these guys aggressively, or do you want to see it for a week?
Aggressively. I've got Tua as a top 10 quarterback this week. I think he just lights them up. The Cardinals are a bottom 3 pass defense. They don't have a single cornerback. They don't have a combination of cornerbacks that can hang with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Mush them all together, make them a superhuman. They still can't run with those guys. So I think this is a big statement game coming back for Tua and these wide receivers. I've got Tyreek Hill as the top 5 option. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 21. I'm almost in concert with Fitz. I got Devon Achane at RB14. I think that clearly this is his backfield. Like, he pretty much owns the passing downs, gets most of the red zone work. I think the interesting, considering all the injuries to wide receivers, so a lot of teams, you're not playing wide receivers at your flex, even if you drafted a wide receiver heavy team. I do like Raheem Mostert as a decent flex play this week. So yeah, this is one of the games that I think could turn into a shootout. Miami does have some glaring weaknesses. I think it's going to be a good day for James Conner, and I'm projecting a surprisingly good day considering most of his box scores from Marvin Harrison Jr. here.
Okay. We'll see how that one goes. I would love a shootout now, and that would be really fun. Let's go to Falcons-Buccaneers. There's a lot of questions this week. It feels like they're all like, this change is happening in the lineup. What do we expect to happen? Here's another one. Obviously, it's not the quarterback this time. It's the receivers. Which is the Tampa Bay pass catcher? So I say pass catcher. You can include tight end if you want. In this first matchup that you want to be playing as a fantasy manager now that they are without both Mike Evans for a month and Chris Godwin for the season, D-Bro?
I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here. I'm just going to say it's Cade Otton. I mean, he's the easy name to bring up here because one, we saw him crush last week. Two, we've been seeing, I think it's since week 3, week 4, he's had an ascending role. Yeah, since week 3, he's been the tight end 9 in fantasy points per game. So I think Otton is the low-hanging fruit. I know if people are circling this question in the show, they really want us to hear to talk about the wide receivers. And so Sterling Shepard's the name I'm going to bring up here. I think he's the guy that people are kind of sleeping on. I think he's going to be the guy that plays the slot and not Jalen McMillan. I'm not very interested in Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer, we've seen, I think, a large enough sample size of him just not earning targets at a consistent rate. I know Chris Godwin and Mike Evans playing alongside him makes a difference there, but I'm not a huge Trey Palmer stan. I do think Sterling Shepard, I think the rapport with Baker, plus moving him back into the slot, when he's been healthy, guys, like, he's been a damn good slot wide receiver in the NFL when he's been healthy. So I think we see that this week.
I haven't looked at your rankings, so this might be way off, but would you start Otton over somebody like Kyle Pitts in the same game, or you just kind of have him at the top of the guys who are a tier below?
I've got Otton right now as tight end 8. I've got him right behind Njoku, Kmet. I've got him right ahead of Kyle Pitts.
Okay.
But I mean, I think you can make a case one way or the other. The thing I think the biggest takeaway for as many injuries as people are dealing with, Cade Otton is a very, very strong flex play. Like, I would look at him as a wide receiver, a strong wide receiver 3, just across positionally this week. So I think he is a player where he's probably on a lot of benches right now. And people are like, okay, do I play him or this tight end? To me, I'm like, no, you play him versus another wide receiver in the flex.
That's really interesting. I have him on a lot of benches, but it's a lot of like, he's my clear tight end too, and it was just kind of the backup I picked. But I'm glad you made that point, because I think most people are like me in that I just kind of rule out pretty much any tight end as a flex option when I'm trying to start my set my starting lineups each week. But maybe that's overlooking Otton. So I'm glad you brought that up. Fitz, what do you make of this situation in this first week without Evans and Godwin? Who is the one guy in this offense you want to target?
I agreed with everything Debro said until the flexing tight ends part. I'm a decided non-flexer of tight ends. So, I like Cade Otton. I think he's going to catch a lot of balls, but I don't think Cade Otton is very dynamic. I don't think he has much ability after the catch. So I do have him inside tight end 1 range, but at tight end 11. There are actually a dozen tight ends who I kind of like this week, and fitting, it is National Tight End Week in the NFL. So, but yeah, getting back to the wide receivers, I agree with a lot of what Debro said, especially about Shepard. People are sleeping on him, and we saw that with the fab bids this week, where Jalen McMillan was fetching some fantastic prices on waiver wires, but not so much for Sterling Shepard, and he might be the sneaky ad. Would not surprise me if over the next month he was the more valuable asset, considering I agree with Debro. He's probably going to get a majority of the slot snaps, even though he and McMillan are sort of interchangeable inside outside. Trey Palmer, interesting size speed combo. I don't think you're really considering him though for your lineup unless you're in a really deep, like 16 team league. McMillan, I do have to give Debro credit because when he was grinding tape earlier this year of the college prospects, he was adamant that Jalen McMillan was the better player than Jalen Polk. And we have seen Jalen Polk not be very good so far, despite being an early second-round pick. And meanwhile, McMillan was like a late third? And, there was buzz around McMillan in training camp. So, even though I do think Shepard could be the guy, I'm still pretty interested in McMillan. Really want to see how he looks this week in this game.
Fitzy, since week 3, Cade Otton, 11.2 fantasy points per game. That would be good for wide receiver 37, tied with Rashad Bateman for the season.
Oh, wow. Oh,
just one
more quick point about McMillan, just to his prospect cred. In 2022, his last healthy season, because he was battling injuries throughout 2023, Jalen McMillan had more catches and touchdowns than Rome Odunze, who was a top 10 pick this year.
Yep. It's true.
I really liked all 3 of the Washington receivers coming into the draft, and obviously Polk has not looked good so far, but I really liked McMillan too. So
I'm still tilting that the Patriots are deciding to play Jalen Polk over Javon Baker. But
I was going to say, when Fitz complimented you on your Polk pick, I almost brought up that you also liked Baker, and that one hasn't worked out.
They should have been flipped. I was there. I'm still there. Yeah. He should have never been a second round pick.
Imagine that the Patriots making bad decisions about wide receivers in the NFL draft.
Grass is green, water is wet.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. This roller coaster of an NFL season is moving right along, and it promises to be a month full of tricks, treats, and of course, touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns, running it in from the 1 or an 80-yard bomb. We don't care how they score touchdowns. We just want to bet on them. DraftKings heard us and is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. We'll see how it plays out. Week 8 does look pretty chock full of a lot of blowouts. There are 3 different games with the spread in double digits: Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, Panthers, Titans, Lions, plus 3 more with the spread of at least a touchdown: Ravens, Browns, Jets, Patriots, and Saints, Chargers. As always, those lines and odds are subject to change, but wherever they land, the touchdowns might look a bit one-sided this week. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, guys, let's go to our next matchup here. Another one of the aforementioned blowouts, Titans at Lions. And I want to focus on the Lions side and ask you, Debra, I'll start on your side. Which player on Detroit will benefit most from the Jameson Williams suspension?
I think it's going to be Sam LaPorta. And he's been the one that's been hurt the most this year by Jameis Winston. Jeez, good Lord. Jameson Williams. He's been the one that's been hurt so much by Williams' breakout season up until this point, man. I mean, all of the and I will also say this in this entire diatribe is that I don't know how truly healthy Sam LaPorta is. His route share on a weekly basis has not been anywhere close to what we have come to expect with his role in the Detroit Lions offense. So assuming health here, I think we're going to see more targets this week. And as long as Jameson Williams is out for Sam LaPorta, who on a per route basis has not been bad. He's just not getting targets. Like amongst 38 qualifying tight ends, he's still 12th, right behind Kyle Pitts in yards per route run. So it's not that he's been playing bad. It's that I don't think he's truly fully healthy. Jameson Williams has been breaking out and it's been spectacular to see, but he just hasn't been getting targets.
Fitz, what do you think? Is LaPorta the right guy here?
I think LaPorta could benefit, but I think the most direct beneficiary might be Tim Patrick. And it would not. So I would not feel comfortable playing Tim Patrick in fantasy this week, but it would not surprise me if he was a thing on waivers next week. And Debro was writing him up in the wide receiver section of our waiver article on Sunday night. He's probably in line for increased snaps the next couple of weeks. And Jameson Williams was the vertical target in this Detroit offense with an average depth of target this season of 13.5 yards. Next highest average depth of target for the Lions, Tim Patrick at 12.1. Not that he is a burner of Jameson Williams caliber by any stretch of the imagination, but Yeah, so like I do think Tim Patrick is interesting. It could be good for Sam LaPorta, or maybe we just see one of those 16 target games for Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Or maybe Ben Johnson just once again rededicates himself to the running game, and it's a tag team affair with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery just battering the Titans all day.
Where do you guys have LaPorta ranked for this week?
He's in that long scrum of like low end guys. Like I've got him at tight end 13 right now, but I mean, shoot, it's
I've
tough.
got him tight end 10, and I've got Otton at tight end 11, and I have been like back and forth between who I think of those two guys should be ranked higher.
Like between Jake Ferguson, Sam LaPorta, Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, and Mark Andrews, it's like spin the roulette wheel. Like you could rank them in any order, and I honestly wouldn't tell you that you're wrong.
Yeah. That's the joy of ranking tight ends every week. Let's go to Jets Patriots. Drake Maye has finished as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy scoring in both of his starts this season. Did he just face favorable matchups the last 2 weeks, or should we be ranking him higher moving forward? Fitz, I'll start with you here.
Well, wasn't that favorable in his first start? He played the Texans, who can really get after the passer, and I think we had that debate on this show about whether the Patriots should be starting him at all and have him make his debut against that team. But certainly an easy matchup for him last week against the Jaguars, who might have the worst pass defense in the NFL. This week against the Jets, not easy. I do think the Jets defense has underachieved this season, and I think Jets fans would probably agree with me on that, but there's still a lot of talent on that side of the ball. The Jets are allowing fewer than 200 passing yards a game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots tried to run the rock a little bit more with Ramondre Stevenson this week, just to keep the pass rush off their rookie quarterback, and because the Jets defense is kind of a run funnel. Like opponents have run on them almost on 50% of their offensive snaps.
That's a good point. For whatever reason, the game log I was looking at when I was, putting together this outline had listed both the last two matchups like in the green category where it was favorable. But you're right, Houston, I don't think qualifies in that way definitively. So it really only one of the two has been like kind of a very juicy matchup there. Debra, what do you think about Maye, just based on what we've seen in those two matchups already, and kind of where you think he should be ranked moving forward, given his finishes in fantasy so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think his finishes in fantasy have definitely outplayed any expectations. I mean, I was on this show, screaming to high heaven that like the Patriots shouldn't be putting him on the field because of the ecosystem they're dropping him into. I still don't think it's a great one. I think he's outplayed all of that, which, I mean, congrats to New England. I mean, he's looked the part. I will say some of his deeper metrics are a little bit, I'm not going to say scary, but amongst 39 qualifying quarterbacks, he's 34th in CPOE and 34th in highly accurate throw rate. So he's kind of threading the needle here. So I think the first matchup for his first start was definitively rough. The second one was a cakewalk. So I think that we're probably viewing him in the appropriate manner because, I mean, do we really think that he walks a tightrope and he's a top 12 quarterback in the Patriots ecosystem for the rest of the season? I mean, hell, I'll even drop that to top 15 guys. Do y'all think he's a top 15 guy consistently every single week? I don't.
Not consistently, but there's rushing upside for sure, which we really haven't seen yet. That surprises me that he has run as little as he had. And I know he had 37 rushing yards his first game, but he is capable of giving you the 50 or 60 yard rushing day. But it doesn't surprise me he doesn't grade out that well in the passing metrics. He's not really a pinpoint passer. He is not an Aaron Rodgers type of prospect. Like he is a different type of prospect, but does have a big juicy arm though. Like there will be good passing days too.
Top 12, top 15, like that all sounds like a little aggressive. But once you get to like, could he be top 18 kind of rest way, especially if he starts running more? I think that's on the table for sure. I mean, again, he's really talented. I think he's going to get better as the season goes along and he just plays more. And then if he runs more too, and maybe they start working in, some of the receivers a little bit better too, and start moving out Polk to D-Rose delight, then
to the bench,
maybe we see even more. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been impressed so far. Ultimately, again, I know last week was, like you said, D-Rose a cakewalk, but overall, like I've been very pleasantly surprised given what my expectations were in this ecosystem in year one. So I loved the player, obviously, but I think it's been impressive so far. Let's go to Colts at Texans. Guys, what's our panic level on the Texans passing game? Stroud is coming off by far his worst game of the season so far. He's also, like, even set aside the fact they only had 89 yards in last week's game. He's only been a top 12 quarterback one time in the last 6 weeks in fantasy scoring. So it's not just this last week, which was the worst of it, but really, like, ever since week one, it's not been that impressive. Fitz, what is your panic level on not only Stroud specifically, but the kind of the passing offense in general?
Yeah, fairly low, like maybe a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. No question that the loss of Nico Collins hurts, but Nico will be back eventually. I think the main problem for the Texans last week was that their offensive line could not keep the Green Bay pass rush off CJ Stroud. Like, he had no time. He got sacked 4 times. He was hurried constantly into just, getting rid of the ball. So, like, a lot of his incompletions were almost just like throwaways. Look, Stroud he had such a phenomenal rookie season that some regression was probably inevitable. And we're seeing regression, no question about it. But, like, he's still a really good quarterback. There's no way you can watch this guy and not draw the conclusion that he is an above average NFL passer. So I think this passing offense will get back on track, especially when Nico is back, but maybe even before. I've got him in the top 10 this week at quarterback.
What do you think, Debra? Where do you have him ranked?
I'm not worried about CJ Stroud at all. I'm gonna just say that. I think this is a big bounce back game. I think the thing that I think it's a few different parts of the Houston offense that we need to discuss. It's meshing different skill sets, new wide receivers, Tank Dell not being fully effective and probably fully healthy to start the season. So I think that's part of it. Losing Nico. I think the offensive complexion. I've got CJ Stroud at QB. I got him at QB 6 this week. I think he's going to crush.
Me too.
The Colts defense is nothing to be scared about. Love it, Fitz. So the other part about the offense is the Houston offense has been very Ben Johnson-esque. Like, when they can run the ball, they've been doing Detroit things. They are running the ever-loving crap out of the ball. So I think that's something that maybe I'm not going to say discounted, but are overlooked in the offseason. But we all talked about, like, okay, look at these 3 wide receivers, and he's got Dalton Schultz and the offensive line. All of these parts or pieces, they're going to be throwing the ball all over the freaking yard. And then we saw them come out the gate, and Joe Mixon gets 200 carries in week 1, and we're like, okay, well, never mind. Guess they're going to run the ball. So I think not having as much passing volume as maybe we projected for this season has really hurt CJ Stroud, but a lot of the other factors around him. And to Fitz's point, if anybody wants to know why CJ Stroud struggled so much, he faced the highest freaking pressure rate in the NFL. No quarterback in the NFL was pressured more than CJ Stroud last week. He got pressured on 62% of his dropbacks. There is no quarterback in the NFL that can succeed seeing pressure that often. Nobody. I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if it's Lamar. I don't care. It does not matter. No quarterback can succeed when they are pressured and 62% of their dropbacks. So really, Houston offensive line has got to play better.
When I think about my favorite fall activities, there are plenty of fun adventures on the list, but right at the top every fall is going to football games live. Some of my all-time favorite memories watching the Ravens have come right inside M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, cheering along with thousands of fellow Ravens fans in primetime. And I'll be checking another NFL stadium off my list this weekend, just 2 days from now, when the Ravens head to Cleveland. I'll be going to that game along with a handful of our Fantasy Pros colleagues. I can't wait to see everybody and also to hopefully see a Ravens win. And when we ordered our tickets, we used Game Time. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. The list of my favorite features on the Game Time app is too long to read everything, but here are some standouts for me personally. I love the Game Time Picks curation, obviously, especially since I can use it for not just sports, but concerts, comedy, theater, and more. I also love the all-in pricing, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. There's nothing in the world more infuriating to me than thinking I know what I'm about to spend on a purchase, then getting hit with a surprise fee at the last second. That doesn't happen with Game Time. Plus, I also appreciate the seat views to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you commit to buying. The customer service is excellent as well. Their support team has helped me out on more than one occasion buying last-minute tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code FantasyPros for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code FANTASYPROS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, guys, let's go to Panthers at Broncos. And maybe kind of sounds like a boring matchup when you say it out loud. But I want to ask about Javonte Williams. He enjoyed by far his best game of the season in Week 7, 111 total yards, 2 touchdowns against the Saints. Debro, was this a case of Javonte breaking out in a way that we'd been hoping to see for a lot of the season, or just the Saints defense being, just that bad? And also, does it even matter with him facing kind of an equally porous Panthers run defense here in Week 8?
I'm going to go with both. The Saints run defense is as bad as people think that it is. It's legitimately terrible. And Javonte is playing so much better, man. Like he's breaking tackles. He's looking more and more like the Javonte of old. I mean, since Week 4, amongst 42 qualifying running backs, he's 9th in missed tackles forced per attempt. He is also 16th in yards to contact per attempt. So a player that we're seeing get some of, and that was the biggest scare for me in the offseason and coming up to this year, was for a player that like Javonte Williams was not a guy that like tested out at the gym, didn't run a freaking 4.3, all this kind of stuff. Could he regain that tackle breaking juice, or was it just gone for forever? It's been coming back. So I'm massively high on Javonte this week. I already bet his overs. I think he's going to crush. I think they're going to run the ball down the Panthers' throats. Right now, I've got Javonte Williams, RB 18, and I'm probably being blasphemous. I need to move him up as a top 15 back for the week.
Fitz, we talked a bit about Javonte on the Thursday show with Erickson already, so we don't need to go too into detail since you already shared some of your points there. But where do you have him ranked now that we're here at the end of the week? And just for those who maybe missed Thursday's show, quickly, why do you agree with Debro here?
Yeah, I do agree with Debro that it's been both a combination of Javonte and these red carpet matchups he's been getting. So of course I've got Debro outflanked in the rankings. I've got him RB 17. One spot ahead of Debro, so now I know.
He just threw down a challenge, Debro.
I just moved him up to RB 16, Fitzy.
But man, so there are some really bad run defenses in the NFL. Like Seattle's not good, Dallas isn't good, Indianapolis isn't good. But I think the Saints and the Broncos are like the two premium matchups, and Javonte gets them back to back. The Saints have given up 502 rushing yards in their last 2 games. And, before it was Javonte last week, it was the Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker combination trampling them for like 200 rushing yards the week before. And the Panthers, oh my goodness, like they've given up the most rushing yards in the league, the most rushing touchdowns in the league, and they have just gotten crushed by, the Commanders, the Falcons, and the Bears over the last 3 weeks. So yeah, this does set up for another really nice week for Javonte.
I want to bring up one extra point about Javonte, because I know a lot of people, and I don't know if it's been discussed earlier in the week about on the trade shows. Javonte, you can make a really good case that he's a trade away, considering he gets the Ravens and the Chiefs in weeks 9 and 10. I think he's a really good trade for candidate, because after those, the sell narrative or the way you want to get rid of him is because he faces those 2 run defenses. After that, his schedule opens up massively. He gets the Falcons, the Raiders, the Browns, the Colts, the Chargers, and the Cincinnati Bengals all the week 17. So, I mean, really, after those 2 horrific matchups, which one of those final teams scares you?
And even with the Ravens and the Chiefs, he's got like a pathway to value because he catches passes.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, we've seen it for sure. Those defenses, the Ravens in particular, can be had through the air with running backs. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great call, Debro. Let's go to Bills-Seahawks. Really fun game. I'm looking forward to this one for sure. Are Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett auto starts, Fitz, with DK Metcalf unlikely to play? And by the way, if you check our Are They Playing tool on FantasyPros.com, we're currently giving DK Metcalf a 21% chance to play. And even that, I think, might be a little high. I do not expect to see him playing this week, so we might find that out by the time you're listening to this podcast. We might have an official word on that. But JSN and Tyler Lockett with Metcalf likely out. What do you expect out of them?
Yeah, wide receivers are not going to play on sprained MCLs. It just doesn't happen. Yeah. So it's funny, Worm. I have looked at my wide receiver rankings a couple of times this week, just thinking like, wow, it seems like I'm really high on this guy or that guy. And I mean, it's just, especially in a week where there are no teams on bye, but there are just so many wide receiver injuries. That's the reason why all these guys are getting pushed up. And so, yeah, like there just aren't that many wide receivers I feel good about this week, maybe like 16, 17 guys. And after that, it gets kind of dicey. And that's sort of the case with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett. Yes, their target outlooks are enhanced by the absence of DK, but I don't feel great about either guy, quite honestly. And then I look at where I have them ranked, though. JSN is wide receiver 23, Lockett is wide receiver 27. And with those rankings, I guess they are pretty much close to auto starts.
Debra, what do you think? Where do you have them ranked?
I've got JSN at wide receiver 28. I've got Lockett at wide receiver 31. So I'm lower on these guys. Yeah, I don't look at them as auto starts. Like the way that I'm actually projecting this game, I think it could be a big Kenneth Walker game. I think Seattle could kind of take the air out of the ball, which would be something new for them. But no DK Metcalf. It's still a very stout Buffalo Bills pass defense, but you can run the ball on that defense. You don't want to throw it against them, but you can run the ball. There's a lot of guys. I mean, it kind of depends on what you need for your team. Like, I think they're both fine floor options. I kind of struggle to see the ceiling with both of them. So I think they're in play as like wide receiver threes, but I don't think they're auto starts.
Debro,
do you see this?
Oh, I was just going to say Debro is well above consensus on Jake Bobo, though, just so you know.
Yeah. do you guys, it's funny, but it's kind of to the point I was about to ask, which is, do you guys see this as a shootout? Because that's how I see it. And like, unless I think all the points are going to get scored by Kenneth Walker. Okay, so you don't see it as a shootout.
I think this is more likely a game that the Buffalo Bills just steamroll them.
Oh, okay. Is that how you see it, Fitz?
Yeah, I'm not playing the total in this one, but I don't think I'm playing it at all because I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle. I think in the pools where I'm required to make a pick here, I did pick the Bills, but I'm not sure. Like, I just don't have a good handle on this game at all. What we're going to see.
Give me the Bills and the points.
Total on DraftKings, by the way, 46.5. So
yeah, I'd take the under on that. But what's the line for the Bills right now?
It's like 3, right?
Yeah, I think they easily cover that.
It is currently it's at exactly 3. So
yeah, I think they cover that.
Okay, yeah, I'm expecting more scoring, I guess, than you guys are. All right, let's go to Cowboys at Niners. Before we get to the key question for Sunday night's matchup, I want to ask you guys about your Uber Eats Sunday night meals of the week. Debra, what must-order food gets you reaching for your Uber Eats app for great game day deals when you think of San Francisco?
I had to send this in Slack very quickly because I was afraid you were going to take this from me because I know your love of all things crab. It's Dungeness crab, dude. Come on, that's the easy one here. Give me the biggest plate of crab you possibly can. I'm in heaven.
I totally agree. If crab is in the name, I am going that way. I'll pick a different one since you got that one very quickly. But first, Fitz, who do you have, or what do you have here as your food
So
item?
I've never visited San Francisco, which I need to remedy, but I've been told that if I go, I have to get a Mission burrito.
Ooh. Any type of burrito in anywhere in California, I'm tending to believe it's going to be pretty darn good. So I'm with you on that one as well. I've only been to San Francisco once. I was very young, and the only thing I really remember food wise is that my dad loves sourdough bread, and he was very excited to get sourdough bread in San Francisco. And then when I was Googling here to be like, I haven't been to San Francisco since I was a little kid, I wonder what's their famous food. One of the first things that popped up is sourdough bread. I also love sourdough bread, so I would love to go back now that I'm older and have a bit more refined palate for it, and get some of their famous San Francisco sourdough bread. So we got some sourdough bread, we got some Dungeness crab, we got some Mission burritos. So very, very enticing food here for Sunday Night Football. Our Uber Eats Sunday night meals of the week. Uber Eats has the best game day deals all season long. Order now for game day. Guys, my question in this game, what do we expect from the 49ers offense without Brandon Ayuk and also some of their other key players banged up, sick this week in the hospital. It's kind of the walking wounded, obviously, for the Niners. What do you expect out of him in this game against the Cowboys, D-Bro?
I expect the Dallas Cowboys to win. I've already bet them on Betting Pros. I took the money line. I know, Fitz, the pain of chasing a Dallas money line. But on DraftKings, they are plus 164 right now. And I just think the 49ers are banged up, man. Like, are they playing tool? Juwan Jennings, 13% chance to play. I do not think he plays. I don't even know if Deebo Samuel plays. George Kittle is dealing with a foot sprain. Like, this offense could be boiled down to Jordan Mason, Ricky Pearsall, and then who's healthy to run routes. So I think Dallas wins this game. And I think it could be a rougher day for Brock Purdy. Kyle's going to have to be in his bag, man, or Jordan Mason's going to have to run the ball down their throat.
Do you like someone like Ricky Pearsall in this matchup for fantasy?
I do, as depending on how all this shakes out, and like how I like him as a volume dependent flex play. If we get Deebo ruled out, if we get Juwan Jennings ruled out, then somebody's got to catch the freaking ball, and I think he would be the favorite. And that's assuming even George Kittle plays. Like Ricky Pearsall, you'd be sowing him for 6 to 8 targets if he's the number 2 alongside George Kittle. So yeah, I mean, I like him as a volume play and flex, but I mean, it's hard to get higher than that just because, I mean, it's his second NFL game, man. He's still trying to get his feet under him.
Fitz, what are your expectations here with the Niners so banged up?
I think Erickson might have said it best on our Start Sit show the other day. Doesn't this just feel like a game where the 49ers let Jordan Mason hammer away 25 plus times against a Dallas run defense that I think ranks like 29th in DVOA? Like, Dallas is not good against the run. The Niners have all these injury issues with Ayuk out for the year, the Deebo pneumonia, the hip injury for Juwan Jennings, the foot for Kittle. And San Francisco has a bye in week 9. So if they can get away with not playing any of these ailing pass catchers, like, those guys will have had 2+ weeks off by the time San Francisco plays again. So maybe we see one or more of these guys sit and we get this ultra run heavy game plan from Kyle Shanahan. And it kind of makes sense given the matchup against Dallas, who just the Cowboys haven't been able to stop the run.
My only worry with that, though, Fitz, I mean, Mason himself is still dealing with the AC sprain. So, I mean, are they going to, I mean, and CMC is no guarantee to come back even after the bye. So it's like, what way do you attack? Like, nobody's healthy on this freaking roster right now outside of like Brock Purdy.
I know, and I traded for Purdy in a league 2 weeks ago where I'd really let quarterback go to seed, and I like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert needed some stability there. Of course, ever since I made that trade, none of the pass catchers can stay healthy. But it's just, maybe you're right. Maybe this is a really good spot for Dallas, but I do think we're going to see a pretty conservative offensive game plan from the Niners.
Yeah, agreed.
I thought I saw a tweet earlier this morning. It might have been Ian Rappaport. I can't remember for sure, so I apologize if this is wrong. But I thought I saw something that was saying that there was some expectation that Christian McCaffrey actually had a decent chance to be back in week 10, coming off the bye. So
they've thrown that around, man.
It's hard to believe anything with CMC. But
but the other thing about that is it's all projection because he has not practiced yet. So we have no clue. Like, he could go to practice and ramp up and then have a setback. Like, we're still kind of like just flying in the dark on that. But no, I saw the same thing.
Yeah. By the way, just while I'm scrolling Twitter looking at that, Tua officially has cleared the NFL mandated concussion protocol. So
good deal.
He is 100%.
Let's go.
For Sunday. All right, let's look at our last game, Monday Night Football. Giants at Steelers. The Steelers dropped 37 points in Russell Wilson's first start. I was not expecting that. Hand up, I got that wrong. Is this the new normal in Pittsburgh? Is a functioning quality Steelers offense now that Russ is there? Do we expect another good game from guys like Najee Harris and George Pickens and company against the Giants, Fitz?
I don't think so. We did see Russ be the QB1 in fantasy scoring last week, but don't forget, like, the Steelers offense got off to a really bad start in that game. I think they went 3 and out in 3 of their first 4 drives, and through the first quarter, I think the only completion of any note that Russell Wilson had was like a 15-yarder to Darnell Washington. I don't think it's the new normal. And by the way, on that great Russ day, salvaged by a short touchdown run. And I know everyone realizes it's not like 10 years ago where we can count on rushing value out of Russell Wilson anymore. And like a great adjustment on an underthrown deep ball to George Pickens where he came back for it on the sideline. Like if you don't have those two plays, he has a very pedestrian fantasy day. I think Russ and Pickens are going to be hit and miss. Kind of the way it's been with Pickens all season. Just not a lot of pop to this passing game outside of those two guys. Maybe the Steelers can run the ball consistently with the Najee, Jalen Warren tag team, but I definitely don't think the Steelers passing game is always going to look as good as it did last week against the Jets.
Debra?
I think that they have put it this way. I think their schedule sets up really, really well for them to look extremely good over the next 3 weeks. They get the Giants, the Commanders, and the Ravens. Those are all beatable, if not beatable pass defenses, if not pass funnel defenses. So I think that in the next 3 weeks, they are going to look very, very good. Do I think that Russ is back? Do I think that Russ is great? No. If you look at his deeper metrics, he got really freaking lucky, man. He last week, amongst 39 quarterbacks total in the season, 26th in CPOE, 22nd in highly accurate throw rate. He got lucky on some 50-50 balls. I know people don't want to hear that. Steelers fans don't want to hear that. It's a reality. I think they're going to look good over the next few weeks, especially considering this week. I think Najee Harris is a fantastic play this week. I also think Jalen Warren, he is in, him and Najee are both in my primary video for the week, which should be live today or tomorrow, depending on when you're actually listening to the show. But both of those guys, I mean, we could see Jalen Warren walk away as maybe a low-end RB2 this week if he gets 15 to 17 opportunities and scores a touchdown this week, because he was knocking on the door of all of that last week.
By the way, if you're wondering why I didn't include Bears Commanders this week, because that just seems like such a fun matchup, it's because we don't think Jaden Daniels is going to play. Our Are They Playing tool gives him a 21% chance to play. So that's why they did not make our...
And the news, Rap just tweeted, Jaden Daniels not present in practice. I don't think that he has a chance to play. He's not going to play this week.
That matchup would have been...
Mariota!
That matchup would have been on this outline for sure if it was the two rookies going head-to-head. But maybe it could still be a fun game. I mean, it was against the Panthers, but Mariota
It's going to be the Bears dominating them now.
I kind of expect that too. So that's why I didn't include it. But just wanted to mention that because otherwise that would be a really fun matchup. All right, guys, we'll wrap up there. Best of luck to everybody. Hope your teams win this week. And, based on the way the previous weeks have gone, hope your teams stay healthy this week. That's maybe the best good luck I can give to everyone here for week 8. For Fitz and Debro, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you again next week.